All right. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, depending on where you guys are coming from. And welcome to Stone Ridge Connect 2026. We are going to be talking about the demystifying MRP session today. How do we control MRP? How do we manage MRP? And then how do we do some traceability? So if you've got a ticket that has a different name on it, you're in the wrong session, but hopefully you're in the right session, and we're going to go through and talk about this stuff today. So from our standpoint, we have a couple of people in our group. My name is Eric Vandenberg. I'm a Stone Ridge software pre-sales architect specializing in Business Central. I've got 20 years of food and bev manufacturing experience on my belt. I've got about 30 years in the Microsoft stack, and I really specialize in manufacturing and quality management. With me, I've got Tim Fry. Tim.
Everyone, I'm Tim Fry. I'm PC consultant lead with Stone Ridge Software. So that means I'm on the delivery side, primarily driving new project implementations and trying to get businesses off the ground with Business Central. I've been in the Business Central world since about 2016. My entire career has been in manufacturing and distribution. Prior to becoming a consultant, I was a mechanical engineer and in operations management for a decade or so. And look forward to being here today.
Fantastic, Tim. Hey, thanks for joining me, and I appreciate the support.
Great.
All right, so today, let's get into some nitty-gritty stuff. This is what you can expect to get out of today. I'm going to spend a little bit of time on some raw material planning, some of the capabilities that Business Central has and how you can leverage and engineer it so that it helps with your side of the business. And then I'm going to hand it over to Tim. Tim's going to spend time in some finished good area, some planning worksheets, as well as some scheduling impacts. And I'm sure, Tim, you've got a couple of good little tidbits that you could get people interested in.
I'll do my best.
All right, I like it. And then we'll round for home, and we'll do some work in the traceability components. And within about 50 to 55 minutes, you'll have a pretty good understanding of what MRP can do for you. And then we'll reach out to you and figure out what your next steps are. All right, so now that you guys have an understanding, let's jump in. And we always like to start in with kind of the common challenges with something. Like, what are you experiencing today? We've done enough, between Tim and I, we've done enough of these to know what most people experience in terms of functionality or failure to launch type stuff. And really one of the key attributes that people experience when they're trying to roll out MRP on their own is that they have data accuracy problems. And Tim can probably resonate this, but MRP really is only as smart as the data that you feed it. And really, what you're trying to get at is ultimately, if MRP is this very big, very large process, and if you're not using the right data, whether it comes to ordering parameters or safety stock or even SKU card or lot sizes, these are all going to contribute to just pour data in, and we like to say garbage in means garbage out, right? So you're not going to get the information that you're looking for. But I would say that you take it a step further, because it's not just about the data. The data is only one portion, but Tim, would you say that there's a trust factor when you don't get in and say that if you have parameters that are wrong, not only is the data wrong, but you also don't trust the data, right?
Oh, very much. Everyone's first look at the planning worksheet is probably they hit the run button and then see a million messages they don't understand. And we're going to talk about some of that today. And there is a big training element to learn to trust the system and what it's telling you.
And yeah, exactly. And that's a great segue into the number 2, which is user training. So MRP isn't inherently hard. It's complex. It's not inherently hard. It's just unforgiving. So in other words, when you set up MRP and you put in your planning parameters, it's going to give you exactly what you put in. It may not give you what you expect, but it's going to give you what you've entered in the system. And with those 2 points, data accuracy and user training, ultimately, that's the stopping point for most companies. They just don't move forward. We're going to show you today how you can move forward, how you can limit those 2. But there are 3 other things on the list. One is change management. I don't know if you've ever played the telephone game and you've actually gotten on that call and you're trying to pass around a message, but it gets just garbled and butchered, right? The way MRP works is that MRP really changes not just the software, but also the culture that you're managing your organization in from an operational perspective. It's giving you some constraints, it's giving you some stabilization, but ultimately it's helping you plan for what you can start to see in the future. And when we show you today, you're going to start to see things that kind of pick your brain and say, oh yeah, I can start planning. I don't have to live in chaos. I can start planning a week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks ahead. Start small. Just start using it from a small perspective and then start to grow into it. The fourth and fifth really are helping you ensure that your MRP runs properly. So without controls, MRP really becomes a suggestion box instead of actually a planning engine. And you really want to make sure that when you put your proper controls in, that means that only certain people can make changes to lead times, only certain people can make changes to bill of materials. There is a communication line that goes from your proper controls all the way through all the different departments, all the way to the end, so that everybody's on the same page. And if we talk like lot for lot or fixed reorder quantity, those are two very different methodologies, and they operate completely different in the system. The fifth one is supplier collaboration. And MRP really can only plan as well as your suppliers behave. If your suppliers never deliver product on time, if they never deliver the right amount of product or in the configuration that you need in order to operate your business, it's destined for failure. So what we're going to try to do is show you that you can utilize the system to help you plan, but also be able to communicate with your suppliers in a way that allows them to be more predictable when they deliver their components and their raw materials to you. So before I move any further, I have to give you a little bit of a tale of two bakeries. So my background is baking. Like I said, I was in the baking business for well over 20 years. I saw it all, right? I saw every way to manage it. And if you ever want to see chaos, you can see chaos in the baking business. So the tale of two bakeries goes like this. Company one, bakery number one, it's the chaos bakery, right? This is the first one. They have great people. They have, so delicious recipes and so forth. When the purchaser comes in the morning, the first thing the purchaser does, walks in the back door and starts counting inventory. The second thing the purchaser does is goes and talks to people on the operation lines. The third thing is that they try to make their way up before they get coffee and talk to the operations team and look at this big whiteboard that has all of their production orders for that particular day. Then they might go get some coffee. They might wake up. Then they're going to sit down and start asking, how much inventory did I have? Did I count out there? What do I have on my production run line? When you ask them where they're at, they're going to give you the same answer every time. What is the inventory? The system doesn't know. It only knows because I know. So that's the chaos bakery. So now let's shift gears a little bit and let's talk about the predictable bakery. The same purchaser walks right upstairs, stops at the coffee maker, grabs some coffee, sits down, looks at inventory, looks at orders, looks at forecast. Instead of firefighting, they're forecasting. Instead of MRP telling them what's wrong, it exposes the truth about their business. And instead of guessing, they're actually executing. So the reality is these are two different companies running the exact same ERP. One is choosing to not use MRP, that component of planning and discipline within the organization, and one is choosing to use MRP, the predictable one. So understand that you don't have to use MRP, but MRP is a tool that will ultimately help you become more predictable and organized within your company. All right, so that brings to the importance of material planning. Why is it important? And what is it going to do for you? So the first one, top left-hand corner, we're going to go counterclockwise around the screen here, is MRP really reduces the unnecessary spending by aligning the purchasing with the actual demand. So that's really a fancy way of saying, what am I going to sell? And how do I make sure I've got my raw materials there so that I can keep production going and I don't have any stoppages? One thing you're going to notice is that within an accounting world, Every dollar of inventory that you don't need is a dollar of inventory you don't need to spend. So if you have too much inventory, if you have too much raw material in your facility, you're tying up actual money within your organization that could be spent in other places, modernizing equipment, helping develop forecasting tools, things like that. And I don't know about you, Tim, but AI definitely is an area that is, ripe with investment. We're all talking about AI. So, if we're spending less time or less money with inventory and spending more money on helping AI help us understand where our future is going, it's better for the organization. Absolutely. The second thing is production planning. MRP is ensuring that the right materials, the right raw materials are available at the right time for production. So if you're in the chaos bakery and you're just going to production with what you think you need, then ultimately upstream, all the raw materials that you have to have in place, you have to have more raw materials in place just to handle the chaos methodology of baking or manufacturing in your organization. You have to have more space to handle those raw materials because you don't know what you're producing. So you have to make sure that you're running all the time. Every minute that you're down is a lost revenue minute. It means you're going to delay your trucks. You're going to delay your customers. It just keeps going and going. So ultimately, you want to make sure that you have the right amount of raw materials available. And to do that, setting up production planning within the system, using the planning worksheets, is going to help you get there. I don't know if you remember, but there used to be a game show out there, but we always call it the no whammies method of manufacturing. Don't have any whammies out there that come in and prevent you from going to your manufacturing line. But all right, the third thing really, pardon me, is resource optimization. And one thing that you realize is that when you have really that method where you're in a chaotic environment and you have a lot of different things happening at a lot of different times, potentially you have waste. And that waste is something that people think of as just, something that is really just material related. When you look at the waste functionality and you start using resource optimization, you're now starting to plan out labor, so you reduce your waste. You're planning out materials, so you're reducing your waste. Ultimately, you're becoming a little bit more prescriptive, but this is where I start to lose people when we talk about MRP. MRP doesn't have to be the rule following thing that you put it in place and all of a sudden you have no constraints to make decisions that differ from that particular plan. MRP as a tool is really that lane that's going to guide you while also allowing you to deviate a little bit here and there to ensure that you can also conform to the demand. So that leads me into demand fulfillment, because your customers aren't always going to order the exact same thing. They're going to vary. They have the same constraints that you do. They have consumers or they have organizations that are ordering from them. So ultimately what's going to happen is they need to confirm and conform to your type of production, and MRP aligns what they're saying they need with the way that you're going to go to market. You're going to go to production. So it aligns supply, the starting point, with your production, with the customer demand. So you're starting to see this kind of cohesive environment where all of these things are starting to come into line. And then just circling the right-hand side, supplier management is really helping you coordinate directly and specifically with your suppliers in a way that's a little bit more comfortable. It reinforces that relationship with them, making sure that you're getting your product at the right time. Waste reduction. The one thing I want to point out here from a waste reduction standpoint, it's not just about the raw materials. And I kind of alluded it to a little bit earlier, but it's actually, there's a ton more information around waste reduction, which is it's materials, but it's also the time and effort. So if you have people that are setting dough aside in a trough, or you've got people that are throwing stuff away in a waste basket, or you've got an actual waste program, it's not just the material that's going into that, it's the time that's spent managing it, putting it in there, reporting against it. All of that information has to be tracked and traced. We're going to reduce the amount of waste, not just from a material perspective, but also from a labor perspective. And then quality improvements and forecast accuracy. These are all areas that are going to help mitigate some of those, or show the importance of material planning. Anything else, Tim, that sticks out to you? All right. From a strategy perspective, I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on this because this is inventory type strategy. So ultimately, when you're talking about strategy, you're talking about what is my methodology for managing inventory? And there's just-in-time inventory, there's ABC analysis inventory, where you create buckets for individual type components, and then you manage those raw materials or finished goods based on what bucket they sit in: high value, high turn, low value, low turn, different types of ways of managing your inventory. You also have safety stock, which help with a strategy, making sure that the floor of allowable quantities is never crossed. So the system thinks that if I have a safety stock of 1,000 units, and the system will never cross the line of 1,000 units, always ensuring, whether it's through manufacturing, sales, production, purchasing, all of that will make sure that I never get below the 1,000 units. And then the system will also help from a strategy perspective around supplier collaboration and automated replenishment. Now, that automated replenishment, that brings me into kind of this acronym, not really acronym, but this methodology I like to think of as our reordering road trip team. And what this really is, these are the 4 different methods of managing your inventory. And this goes from raw materials all the way through to finished goods. And Tim's going to spend a little bit of time going in and talking about some more specifics around each one of these. I'm going to show you what my team looks like here, and then I'll show you where you find the team inside Business Central. So in this case, the reordering road trip team is the group of people or processes in this case, that will fill up your car and you go on a road trip with them. So the first one on the left is your fixed reorder quantity member. And this really is the guy or gal that goes in, they see that you're short on snacks, so they walk into the next stop and they grab all the snacks that they can, they bring them out and they bring them to the car. Really, they're just ordering the same thing every time. They're predictable. They bring it in, they get into your car, and you're off and running going down the road. Now, next, the maximum quantity person is the kind of person that you stop at your 7-Eleven, he goes in and he buys out the 7-Eleven. He's always going to make sure that you have the maximum amount of raw materials and available quantities in your car, that you've maximized the entire space, so you always have the most amount you can have. That's my big gulp guy. The third one is lot for lot. And I'm sure we have everybody's got one of these people in their lives where they've got the minimalist, and they look at what they have in the car. They say, how much do I need in order to get to my next stop? And they're going to go and buy just that amount. So they're really just going to grab just the amount that you need to get to that next stop. And then they're going to reorder at that next stop and make sure you have just enough to get to the stop after that. And then we've got the order-to-order friend, the hyper-specific friend that is very specific about what happens at every stop. So they're going to look at your ordering capabilities. They're going to look at what you have in your car. And they're going to say, okay, the next stop is only a gas stop. I'm only going to buy gas there. And then the stop after that, I'm only going to buy snacks. And, oh, by the way, you can take a restroom break, but no gas. They're going to make sure you buy the right things at the right time. So that's my road trip team. That's the team that I take on the road as I develop my MRP. So where can I find that? So let's take a look at that. So if I'm in Business Central, and I'll come back up to the top here, and I'll come over to my items button here, and I'll just go into one of my items. So let's go ahead and I'm going to filter down. If you haven't come across, the filters are a great way for you to take a lot of data and design something for just filters that you want to see. So I filtered my entire item list down to 2 different items, and I'm going to go ahead and click in my raw material item here. Now, as I scroll down, you're going to see that I have my fast tabs here, fully expandable and collapsible based on what I want to see. And I'm going to come down to actually my planning fast tab. And you'll see here's my reordering team right here. So I've got my fixed reordering team. I've got my maximum quantity person, the big gulp person. I've got my order and my lot for lot. So this is the team setting here. Now, as I set the team member that I want to put in, I want you to notice on the right-hand side that I've got various parameters that become available. And again, like I mentioned, Tim's going to spend a little bit more time going into the specificity behind this. But if I pick one, you're going to see that now I have a reorder point that's available. The other aspect that I want to show here is not only can I pick the team, not only does this item have the ability to be set up at an individual item level for the road trip reordering team profile, but I also have this ability to set up my stock keeping unit card. And now this is really important because ultimately what you're going to see is if you have multiple facilities, each facility might not run the same way. So when you look at your stock keeping units, I can have individual planning parameters set up at each one of my locations that can be different and specific to that particular location. So in this case, I'm looking at my main facility. I've got lot for lot here. If I scroll to the right, I have I have order availability for my west location here. And I can go through all of my individual manufacturing facilities and set those up as individualized ordering parameters specific to that location. All right, so with that, I'm going to hand it over to Tim, and Tim is going to take us through some production planning and scheduling.
And so first thing we're going to do is take a look here at some of the central concepts and really things around the planning worksheet and how planning works in Business Central. And thanks for all that info, Eric. That was great. So I'm going to go ahead and advance here and all right, lay a little bit of groundwork before we dive back into demoing. I want to try to get across a few things about what production planning in Business Central is and what it isn't, and what some of the gotchas are that people run into the first time I'll often just try to use this without really understanding the tool first. In Business Central, production planning is all demand-driven planning based on the finished goods. And what I mean by that is we're not going on what we're able to make. We're not going on what we have on historical sales or anything else. We're going on what's generally called independent demand. So demand directly from sales orders. Now, if your company needs to work further ahead than sales order, than your existing orders, we have a method for that, and that's called demand forecasts. So if you have say a 20-week lead time and your orders are only going to be out for maybe 8 weeks, then yeah, we need to do something and work to predict what our demand is going to be in the future without having those orders exist. That's what demand forecasts let you do. But either way, your planning parameters are all going to drive off of what was really in the system. There are tools out there that let you load that will let you look at historical transaction volume. But Business Central by default would have you use the demand forecast to do that. The other kind of demand that comes into play is dependent demand. And dependent demand is demand that's coming from a different demand. Basically, it's the raw materials that we're planning because we have a production order we need to make. So on down that list, right? It might be production orders that we need to make in order to make a subcomponent of our ultimate finished good. So just understanding that Business Central is really working off those actuals. So then the next thing to understand is when you start working in a world of MRP, dates begin to matter a lot. Your customer service team can't enter sales order with a due date of today. That's not realistic because MRP is always going to try to balance supply and demand and match those two things. So we need accurate dates. That means accurate dates on sales orders, accurate dates on when we are expecting raw materials on your purchase orders. And there's some ways to buffer this. If you have we understand that there's plenty of supply chain uncertainty right now. And I'll show you some tools in those replenishment parameters that Eric was talking about that can help us deal with that uncertainty. But ultimately, Business Central is going to work off of these production order dates. If it's not working off of dates, it's going to be making stuff up. Other sources of things that can cause problems in terms of dates in Business Central would be like inaccurate routings. If you don't have accurate routing times, Business Central doesn't know how long it's going to take you to make something. And so just that's something that your organization is going to have to learn to manage, is what these expected delivery and shipment dates are, what our vendor lead times are, so that we can get, to Eric's point earlier, with garbage in, garbage out. If we don't have good data to understand our vendors' capabilities to deliver, then planning starts to suffer. And just below, I wanted to point out a few additional sources where date discrepancies can come into play and maybe confuse people, which is that there are some system-wide settings like warehouse handling times that are maybe not often used, or safety lead times that might have been entered into the system that are no longer accurate. And that can cause your dates and your planning to go off in unanticipated directions.
Can I add one thing, Tim? So the one thing I want to stress here is that there are a lot of decisions here. You have to make sure your dates are right when you're doing this, but don't get frustrated if something doesn't come out the right way the first time. As you're learning the application, you're going to start to see some of these things and the results of those changes, and you're going to learn how the system, call it GPS, right? You're learning how the system reroutes you to get to that final endpoint. So don't get too frustrated that you don't get the result you're expecting. Stick with it, and you'll start to see how it works, and it just makes you better down the road.
Yeah, absolutely. Good point. And the other thing is, my advice to people when they're learning this stuff is always to start small and to experiment. You'll create a small sample set that you're going to work with, and then start to understand how, as you change your inputs, how your outputs change. Build on that.
That's a great point.
Very hard to understand how an entire engine works if you just stare looking at it. But if you start to think about it piece by piece, it's all understandable.
So valuable. Agreed.
So we're talking about planning, and I just wanted to kind of point out that there are several ways to plan. The planning worksheet is the thing that I consider to be the most powerful, but depending on your organization, there are other tools, and you can still run MRP even if you are manually creating, or if you're creating your production orders based off of sales orders. We can still use it for raw materials, but just wanted to point out that manual creation to create a production order. Okay, we're probably hopefully you're looking to get away from that, and that's the reason you're in this session. I'm going to assume that we understand how to manually create a production order and key that data, but that's not very fun. We want to try to find some better tools to do the job. Another way that you can drive production order creation is by using an order planning tool from within the sales order, and I'll show you that to you briefly. And what that does is ties a one-to-one production order to your sales order. So if you make a sales order for an item, you will get, use the planning tool, you will get a production order for that item. It's useful if you're an order by order production house, and there are companies out there that fits the bill. But one of the things that tool doesn't let you do is start to think about consolidating your orders. If you have, for example, a couple production orders, or a couple sales orders due within a small date range, maybe you don't want to run 3 different production orders to fulfill that sales order. You want to run one bigger production order. And so that's where tools like the planning worksheet start to shine, because we can set them up so that we get some consolidation of demand, which is really useful. We can also at the same time capture demand of subcomponents and lower level WIP production orders that we may need to make in order to make our finished good. So those are all very useful tools in the right circumstances, and you may end up using a combination of them. And we'll take a look at those in just a minute here.
I like that there's efficiencies of scale through that whole process. There's a full manual process, and then as you grow and see efficiencies with combining things, it just helps you plan better down the road.
Absolutely. So the other thing, when we start talking about MRP, you need to understand that what we're trying to do is balance supply and demand. We can use order modifiers and safety stock and things like that to create buffer. But ultimately, what the system is trying to do is make sure everything that we're ordering has a purpose. And that purpose is to create finished goods that we're selling to our customers. Some of the things that make the planning worksheet confusing when people are starting off is if they have bad dates, Business Central has to try to resolve that situation. If you have a sales order out there that's 6 months old, Business Central will try to figure out how to resolve that. And what they're going to do is you're going to get emergency orders to fix this because you are overdue. So I'll show you, we're going to intentionally create some of these examples so you see what that looks like and understand why you're getting these messages. And here's some of the messages. I'm not going to go into a ton of detail on this because we're going to see it in just a second here. But when the planning worksheet runs into a problem, when you're overdue, when you're late, if you're going to go negative on inventory, it's going to send you these messages like emergency messages, exception messages. And this slide's in here just to help you start to understand why you're getting these. It's Business Central's way of telling you that something's wrong. Something has gone off with planning and it's asking you to do something. It's BC's way of saying help.
Yep.
And so we'll see some of those. I'm going to intentionally make some of that happen.
The one thing I would say here is it's important to pay attention to this slide just because sometimes the message that comes across can be a little bit ambiguous and you might not necessarily tell you what the problem is. This is a great way to look at it because it's giving you what the cause and the effect is. And then you can take appropriate action against that.
Absolutely. So with that, I'm going to switch over to demo environment here. And we're going to take a look at the planning worksheet and at the supply planning here. In my demo environment, I've got a sales order here. And we're looking at 2 items here. So we've got a little more real estate here. We're in the coffee sales business today. So we've got 2 of these coffee makers, 2 different quantities. And if you look, we've got our dates for our delivery date is planned for the 25th of April. This will become important in the future. But on this particular order, these 2 items are due. And if we wanted to look at planning just on I want to make production orders to fulfill this sales order, we can do that. Instead of going and clicking new production order and then creating a production order for these same 2 items for the same quantity, we can go one step more efficient and come down here into the planning tab and look at planning. What we can do is highlight these guys and we can say that we want to create production orders for them. And what this is going to do is it's going to create a production order for each of these finished good items to fulfill this sales order. This does tend to be 1-for-1, so we're not going to combine any other demand that we have out there, but we can make production orders as easy as the create button. We can do them in plan, firm plan to release status, and we can do them on an item by item basis, or there is a way to create one production order that will cover both of these items as if it was a project. And so, that is an option. I don't want to go down that road too far today, but as simple as clicking firm plan, I want to make a firm planned order and hit yes. We'll make 2 different production orders for this sales order for these items.
Hey, Tim, can I have 2 different planned dates for those two items and still run it?
Yes. Yep. Because you're going to get 2 different production orders.
Yep. Fantastic.
But the dates for these production orders are going to be just in time. So it's going to be in time to fulfill and ship this order. Not today. Yeah, great question. So the other way to look at this would be to look at the planning worksheet. And the way that's going to be valuable is what I've done here is created a second order for a different customer for about the same date range. Right? We're looking at delivery on the 28th instead of, I think I said the 25th. Same 2 items, quantities are different. And so with that said, now we've got a scenario where we've got 2 different sales orders, 2 different customers, want the same items, and we want to start looking at planning in a little more holistic manner. And so what we'll do is I'm going to back out of these sales orders. We're going to go to the planning worksheet. The planning worksheet, there's two of these types of worksheets in Business Central. Planning worksheet covers production orders and it can cover purchase orders. Requisition worksheet will cover, primarily is intended to cover purchase orders. They can work in tandem. If you've got production planners that want to live in the planning worksheet and purchase and procurement planners that want to live in the planning worksheet, there's ways to support that, and I can show that to you. So first thing I'm going to do is come in here and click Calculate Regenerative Plan. This brings up this dialog, which is BC's way of tell me what you want to plan for. And so we'll come in here and I'm going to say, I want to plan for today through the 1st of June, arbitrarily. Your ending date is going to be whatever practical date range you want. And since today I just want to look at planning for production orders, what I've done is I've said, only give me items that are made by producing them, rather than made by potentially purchasing them or transferring them from location. And so that we don't get all sorts of things that aren't coffee cups or coffee makers, I'm filtering by the items a little bit. I'm going to run this, and we're going to see what results we get. Okay, and already we can see a couple of interesting things going on, right? Some desirable and some maybe not. Make that a little bigger. Okay. Business Central is coming in here and it's looking at our due dates for our sales orders, and it's saying we need to have these coffee makers in time for our shipments. And you can see the quantities are the quantities coming from the sales order. Okay. The other thing you'll see is that we've got this production order out here for something that wasn't on the sales order. And the reason is, in order to make these coffee makers, we have to also make a reservoir assembly. So this is an item that's produced, but it's dependent demand. We're producing this because we need it in order to make our other coffee makers. I hope that makes sense.
Now, Tim, real quick question. You mentioned in the ending time was in time for shipments. Are you saying that the system takes into consideration the time, the date that is supposed to be delivered, as well as the shipping time that's required to get it to there?
It can. If you entered your shipping time in the order, then it will account for that. And you can also include a safety time if you want to buffer those orders to make sure you deliver on time. The other thing you can see the system doing is that it's working backwards, right? We need it by the end of the day on the 24th, so we can ship it on the 25th. In order to have it by, in this case, 4 p.m., we need to start it 4 days earlier at 1 o'clock. And that's according to our routing. And that's why routings matter. Our routings have to have accurate runtimes, which hopefully they do, because that's also how you drive for accurate costing. But it's working backwards from that delivery date and saying, in order to have it in time for the 25th, I need to be done on the 24th, and I need to start it on 4 days earlier. And then when you come down here, we need, in order to be able to start this on the 20th, we need our component by the 17th. And if I'm not mistaken, there's a weekend. Yeah, the 17th is a Friday afternoon. So it knows that we aren't working on the 18th and the 19th. So we need to be done with this on the 17th. And that's all set up in your calendars. And there's another potential place that some of this inaccuracy can creep in. If you're telling the system you're working 7 days, it's going to assume you're going to be there on Sunday morning, firing up your coffee production line. But let's say that, that this isn't really what we want to do. We don't want to make 50 of these on the 16th and then turn around and do another production run 4 days later and another one just a little bit later to fulfill these orders. But let's say we want to do one big production order and get these all made at the same time. What I'm going to do is hop back to that replenishment and planning tabs that Eric was pointing us to. And we're going to zero in on the planning tab. And so this reservoir is planned by a lot for lot basis. That's Eric's minimalist friend, right? So what lot for lot is trying to do is trying to minimize the amount of inventory that we're having on hand. So it's lot for lot is your teenage kid that's showing up with a gas tank with 4 miles to eat. Yeah, it's trying to drive that supply and demand to be balanced perfectly. And so we're going to leave that go for now and assume that we only want to produce as much as we want to make. So we don't want to set a safety stock. But what we're trying to do is not have 3 different production orders. I'm going to come in here and say, I'm going to set this lot accumulation period. We've got a handful of the planning parameters that are affected by our reordering policy of lot for lot that can modify the behavior. And these are in general called order modifiers because they modify the behavior of the planning worksheet. I'm going to set this accumulation period to 2 weeks and then back out of here. And we're just going to rerun the planning worksheet with everything else the same. And to our conversation earlier, Eric, we were saying, how do we make sure that we're understanding what's happening? I'm working with a limited data set. I'm not going wide open until I understand the results that I'm getting out of the planning worksheet at a smaller scale. I'm rerunning this, and lo and behold, it worked. And had I made a mistake, then I go back and try again, try something else, understand, just iterate a little bit. There's a little bit of brute force learning that can happen here, and that's okay. But notice that now we have this consolidated order, which is what we're going for.
So this is, in the last 15 minutes we have here today, this is like one of the key areas that people miss because they don't necessarily understand how to bring that window down to 1. They think you have to live with 25 different entries for the reservoir assembly. Instead, you can compact it into 1, which is really great.
And so then the other thing is that maybe we want to have some safety stock so we never run out of these things. And I'm going to go ahead and we can add a safety stock, this item, and I'm going to say we want 500 on hand. Okay? And then rerun this, and you're going to start to see some of these exception warnings because, lo and behold, we don't have 500 on stock. Uh-oh, what do we have to do? This is the system telling you are below your safety stock. You have an exception message. Projected inventory is below safety stock. And the reason I wanted to make sure this happens is so you see what the system is doing, getting these exception messages, right? And we get an emergency message because we also don't have the subassembly to make finished good. So that's that's why that's happening. The last thing is that dates matter. If I plan my starting date, my sales order was 4/25. So if I set my starting date to 4/26, also going to get the system to freak out. So I'm simulating that we've got a overdue sales order, right? We jumped forward to the end of April, but we've got a sales order out there that's now past due. We run this again. The system says, hey, we've got another exception. We needed these. We've got an emergency. We needed these production orders yesterday. That's why dates matter. And if we properly manage our dates, we can get really effective results out of here. Really clean results in the planning worksheet.
And that's the flashlight. It's just shining a flashlight on the areas that need to be looked at in the system.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, and so with that, I'm going to rerun this one more time, and then we are going to carry out action. We are going to create these production orders. Hand it back to Eric to talk about what comes after that. And so we're going to go ahead and create these orders as they stand. I'm not going to create them for my safety stock because maybe I changed my mind. I'm going to go back right after that and fix that safety stock. We're all set, ready to create our production orders. We switch to a firm plan. We're going to create in any status, but I'm going to create a firm plan production order, carry this out, and this is going to create all of my production orders all at once. Look at them. And I'll close this section with one little trick that I'm not sure, I think a lot of people don't know. They think you have to change these statuses one by one. But
good trick. I like this.
You come up here and not the current page, but down here, production order status, my orders, I can select them all, change status, all of them, least order all at once. Now we're ready to go to production.
Handy little feature.
Eric, I will pass the baton back over to you.
All right. Tim, thank you so much. That was awesome. That was fantastic. All right. So I'm going to finish out, I'm going to round home here, and we're going to finish out with a little bit of traceability. We got a couple of minutes on this, and then we'll bid adieu. One thing I do want to point out, Tim, is really nice work there. If you're interested in, for the group that's listening, if you're interested in learning more about the different types of production orders, firm planned or released production orders, things like that, how they work and how they integrate with purchasing and how they're used in purchasing, that's a whole nother segment. We'd love to chat with you about that. There's a lot of valuable information there. All right. So I think I'm back up sharing. Can you see traceability? I think so. Perfect. All right. So I'm going to move to the next slide here. Traceability is one of the caveats within Business Central that allows for your quality team to get more information. Now, it's just one attribute. It's just one little segment. If you want to talk quality, if you want to have a conversation around quality, we have a lot of solutions that work with the quality aspect of BC and some extensions and things like that. And that's really designed around organizations that need that quality, those quality tests and inspection tests and things like that. So this is just one attribute within Base Business Central. What is traceability? If you're in a segment, an industry where you have regulated requirements that you have to trace components, then you're going to want to know about lot traceability. So if you have, I know in food, you have FSMA requirements, you have SQF requirements. In biochem, you have traceability requirements. All of these things contribute to having to know where you got your raw materials from, have them match your processes through the production process, warehousing and production processes, and ultimately, who did you sell the product to? So if I bought a component from vendor A over here and it went through all of my blending process and my batch processing and all of the stuff that goes in my production environment and ultimately gets shipped to customer number one, if I have a recall over here in vendor A, something happened, I need to be able to trace it to all the different customers that it went to, but I need to do it quickly. In bread, in bakery, in food, we used to just go to paper, if you can believe that, Tim. We used to go to these filing cabinets of paper. We would grab it out. We'd say, okay, what flour lot was used here, and we'd have to trace it all through the paper. And about a week later, we'd issue a recall. That was back in the day. That kind of dates me. But nowadays, it's instantaneous. It's getting that information right away. So from a traceability perspective, this slide here gives you the benefits of having traceability within the system. Number one reason is better compliance. FSMA, whatever regulatory commission that regulates your particular industry, whether it's governmental or whether it's privatized. We used to have something called BRC or SQF. These are independent organizations that come in and make sure that all of your recipes are correct and all of the ingredients are being tracked and so forth so that you can give that to your customer. Now that goes into number two, higher quality products, because if you're tracking the quality of the raw materials that are coming through, you can create higher quality products. Continuous improvement, easier product callbacks and returns. How easy should it be to be able to get a compliant list of items that were used? And then ultimately cost savings and improved company reputation. These are all things that contribute to traceability. Out of the box, Business Central does lot tracing. So if I go ahead and hide this screen here, and I come back to my list screen here, I just went ahead and picked a raw material. One of the things that I can do within Business Central is go ahead and click on, I've got all of these different quantities here available to me on my item screen that comes out of the box. I can click in here. I can go ahead and see my individual quantities. Over here in this column right here, I've got my lot numbers. I can see how much inventory I have in each one of these lots, but that's not necessarily where I need to go. I can also come here and go ahead, maybe I want to look at item availability by lot. So I can look at my current inventory of this particular raw material by lot. Now, here's the scenario. Vendor 1 calls up and says, hey, we have a recall. Lot number 3 was just recalled, and we need you to track and trace it. Okay, now your purchasing team goes into a little bit of a stir. They get a hold of their quality team. They run out to the system. They realize they don't have any more of these filing cabinets. The paper isn't there anymore. So what do? Come up to process, click on item tracing, and I can go ahead and click on lot number, and maybe I just plug in the lot number. Maybe I don't know the item number. I don't know anything about it. I just know the lot number that was used. So let's go ahead and trace it. Right away, within seconds, I get the lot number. I have right away here, this line right here, this purchase header that I can go ahead and show the document. And I can see immediately what purchase order it was purchased on, what the receipt was, and what else I bought with that particular purchase order. So I can see the whole lineage of items that are available in that purchase order. So great, I can see the whole thing. So I can contact the supplier. I can say, I got it, it's good to go, but I'm missing a piece. Maybe not only do I need to know how much I have in inventory, but I need to know where it was used. So I've got this production order. So this consumption line right here tells me I used 10 units of that. This is only one portion of it. So I don't know who I sold it to. So maybe I want to turn around and go ahead and trace opposite from the line, which now gives me not just the vendor I purchased it from right here on the top line, but it also gives me the production order that it was used on, all of the different ingredients that were used in conjunction, so that came in contact with that. And finally, down here at the bottom, it gave me the customer or the customer list I sent it on to. So now I can go ahead and notify my customers, say, hey, pull this product off the shelf, pull this product out of rotation. And now I'm compliant with the requirements from a lot traceability capacity. So I've got all of that capability, and I don't need to know all of the information. I just needed to know the lot number in order to get this information. If I didn't know the lot number, I could easily just say, okay, it's item number 16, trace, and let's go ahead and go back here, do some opposite. And now if I pick 16 and I retrace it, I'm gonna go ahead and, that didn't show up, but I've got all the lots that are, let's do that, now trace. Now I've got all the lots that I purchased from that vendor, and then I can do my track and trace from that point forward. So I can call the vendor up and say, hey, these are the lots we have, and I can manage it from there. So that is the lot traceability functionality within Base Business Central. So with that, I am going to go ahead and get us back to the end here and close us out. Tim, first and foremost, thank you very much for your time. I really appreciate all of the presentation materials, all of the information that was presented. This was great. As a consumer, as a viewer of this, what you guys learned today was a clear split. There's raw materials, there's finished good, and there's traceability. So you saw 3 different aspects of Business Central. Ideally, what you would have gotten out of it is practical planning parameters and replenishments, understanding how they interact with each other, and give you some hands-on looks at how things work. Ultimately, all of these things that come together are important for your business. And if you want to know more, please feel free to reach out to us. Come to our webpage and click the contact us, or email solutions@Stoneridge Software. And we have a couple of people waiting by the sides, just wanting to get into have this conversation with you. And we'll have a chat. We'll see how it fits, and we'll work with you. Tim, once again, thank you. Any parting words, anything remaining?
No, I would just say that there's a lot of flexibility within planning, and there's also a lot of ways that these parameters work together. So if you have any questions, feel free to reach out, and hopefully we can help you out.
That sounds great.
Eric, I appreciate it.
Yep, Tim, thank you. Viewers, guys, thank you very much for your time today. Hopefully all of your sessions are as informative as ours was. All right, have a good day. Take care.